Peace. What's up? Let me go ahead and connect to social media, and we're gonna jump right into the preeminence of relationship immediately after. I'm a little excited. I just came in from meeting with the elders on Mondays. It's not meeting with the elders on Mondays. I forget what it's called, but I look at it like meeting with the elders on Monday at the Meriwether Library on Jefferson, the old library right there on Jefferson and Utica, man. It's beautiful being able to build with like-minded people, especially those that came before you, that you can learn from, so that you don't have, so that not only you can follow their footsteps in advance, but you can miss the mistakes. I'm excited because my brother Shango gave me this sweatshirt today, and I've been waiting. Him and this girl Laura Crump got some nice sweatshirts that I've been wanting, and I love sweatshirts. If you know me, you know sweatshirts and jeans is my thing. This is what I do. This is what I love, right? Even in the summertime, right? At night, obviously, but I love sweatshirts, man, and I love the red, black, and green. And anything relative to Africa is dire and important and significant to me, as well as should be to all of us. But let me go ahead and connect while I'm sitting here talking stuff, because we got a lot to get into, and this year going to be a year of improved, improved efficiency as well as productivity, man. This is going to be excellent. So let's see, where am I at? Let's share. Or we share. Let's see if we can get 25 shares. I was talking to the elders and trying to figure out how can we transfer some of this information and pass the baton on to the next generation. When I see that social media has them by the clutches, like social media got people wrapped in the chokehold, man. It's a wrap. Feel me? And we need to get back to self. Well, there was a lesson tonight, a beautiful lesson Brother Shango put out there. And it wasn't his lesson. I forget the brother's name. It's on the tip of my tongue, too. But the brother went into speaking about um, truths and falsehoods, and talked about a story about how falsehood blinded truth. And I mean, it got deep. I'm gonna try to find it and post it, so keep a lookout for that. But man, that is something that anyone that is concerned about people that look like us, that go through the atrocities and the struggles and obstacles that we go through, you should watch this, because it will help you with this cognitive dissonance that a lot of us have. A lot of us don't want to. They say that the truth sets you free, and I learned this from an elder. So I'm going to repeat, basically paraphrasing what I heard from him that I agree with. A lot of us say that the truth will set us free, but we keep devoting our lives and our hearts to the message of a God presented to us by the same people that oppressed us. And I ain't just talking about the Caucasian man, but we're definitely talking about them as well, right? At some point, we got to walk away from what people want us to believe and go and seek the truth on our own. Every single one of us. We can do it as a group, but we definitely got to be able to do it. So with that said, right, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna post this real quick, and we're gonna get right into this. You know what I mean? Um, let's go. Also, don't judge me, because food is still my girlfriend, and I'm cooking something up right now. So you know what I mean. I could watch me a little movie, and maybe, because I don't really watch movies, but I've done so much reading over the last 3-4 days. I've earned the ability to relax, and I'm gonna tonight. So hey, I hope your new decade is going right. If it's not, it will. You just gotta have faith. You know what I'm saying? And it's will of steel. Like, you just gotta keep pushing forward, family. Preeminence of relationship. I remember a story told to me about two white men who shared an office for 20 years. They greeted and smiled at each other each day as they got to the office, exchanged trivialities about each other's family, golfed together, and attended all the company's social functions. They both were productive members of the corporation and worked together closely. Yet the entire time they despised each other. They talked behind each other's back, tried to undermine each other's reputation, and worked to beat each other out of their next promotion. These two gentlemen worked at the same office and held those feelings all those years, 20 of them, remember? Yet it never affected their ability to get their jobs done. Black folk, think about that momentarily while I make sure that this water boils. Yeah, I'll be right here. Bear with me. I'm working. Be right there. Give me 1 second. You want stars? I'll be right there. Okay, got it. That didn't take too long, did it? If it did, oh well. All right, let's get back at it. The reason I said think about that, these people can hate each other, but they will come together for one reason: to stop us, to prevent us from excelling or victory. There was a talk about tonight, not allowing, mm, not allowing defeat to escape the jaws of victory. A lot of times we'll be winning, and somebody from our side will be like, let's compromise. Fuck all of that shit. We've been trying to compromise in like 3,200 years. Fuck that shit. Take this shit like we supposed to. Let me get back into this. And part of my language. Again, this ain't for kids because formally kids are goats. Informally, people use it as their children, but that's not really what it is. The two men tactically agreed not to acknowledge their animosity or their true feelings toward each other for the sake of their main objective, getting their paychecks. Contrast this story with what is likely to happen if both gentlemen described above are African American. Given the preeminent role that relationships play in African American culture, two African American men are not likely to find this situation tolerable, despite the fact that they also need a paycheck. Their awareness of each other's feelings while being in such close proximity could put a stain on their working relationship. They would probably find it difficult because they could not be real, example, authentic. For it to be so could conceivably lead to a confrontation or even a physical altercation. They will be operating out of an African American socio-cultural context replete with appropriate rules and protocols. Thus, the above situation would be a violation of these rules and protocols and could lead to an unworkable situation. In African American communities, relationship frequently trumps everything else. Consideration of relationship permeates all of our interactions. For example, when Black students feel they have been disrespected by a teacher, they often feel completely justified in rebelling and shutting out the offending teacher, even if it means failing the class and sabotaging academic aspirations. Some students may go so far as to act out and wind up facing disciplinary action of some kind. Similarly, in the workplace, where there is tension between African American workers and their coworkers or boss, the rift will often be apparent to any observer and may even impact productivity. Situations involving family or close friends will often take precedence over attendance at school, work, meetings, etc., regardless of the consequences. While we all may be aware of the fact that some African Americans often respond to their detriment in the ways related above, it's also clear that these and similar behaviors at times have served to strengthen the individual and the community. It is vitally important to understand the role that relationships play in African American culture in order to differentiate between harmful and dysfunctional adaptive behaviors and positive and functional ones. Historically, African societies were arranged and based upon kinship relations. The extended family was an interdependent unit that provided for the care of the children, the sick, and the elderly. In African culture, your nieces and nephews would consider themselves brothers and sisters instead of cousins. The extended family structure was part of a survival strategy, particularly for Africans whose kinship ties provided the mechanism for child rearing and social organization. All the members of the extended family helped to provide for the basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Family cooperation meant the survival of a tribe or group. Similarly, in African American culture, not only is there an extended family, but also what has come to be known as fictive kinship, meaning that unrelated individuals are granted the status of family by being given the names of aunt, uncle, cousin, and so on. With such titles come unique rights and privileges of freely interacting within the family. Consistent with the African focus on interpersonal relationships is the responsibility and accountability of each member of the tribe for their personal actions and behaviors. Thus, the adage, what goes around comes around, was particularly meaning in the has particular meaning in the African American community. MK and KW Asante in African culture, the rhythms of unity, describe the roles that relationships play in the African worldview. There was an organic view that the whole world was related in a dynamic sense. Tampering with one part was believed to affect the whole. All parts had to be in rhythm and harmony with one another, leading to a sense of connection to the cosmos. Time, in traditional African culture, has been viewed as a central phenomenon. The worldview has had a religious base and has emphasized an external locus of control and the need for humans to temporarily harmonize themselves with the forces of control and the forces around them. Time has been used in establishing a complexity of balanced relationships. One, time is used to establish a relationship with the supreme being. Two, to establish a relationship of continuity between the present and the past generations. Three, to establish a relationship with nature and the forces of one's environment, nature. And four, to create group harmony and participation among the living. Compatible with the principle of maintaining harmony and connectedness, much of the political arrangement of African societies was decentralized, showing little concern for control over territories. These stateless societies relied principally on consensus, customs, and traditions rather than on legislative processes. Relying on consensus confirmed that all individuals were important in determining the movement and direction of the whole group. African people consider all things in the universe dynamically related. They see the world as a balance of internal and external loci of control, a universe interconnected spiritual and temporal networks with which people ideally strive to synchronize themselves. J. and Biddy, in the book African Religions and Philosophy, describes this universe. There are 5 divisions of the ontology, ranked in order of descending importance. 1, God. 2, spirits. 3, man. 4, animals and plants. And 5, inanimate objects. The ontology is anthropocentric in that attention is focused upon man, humans, as the sender. Humans are acutely aware of their position in relation to other forms of existence, since a balance must be maintained at all times, and since all modes must keep their proper place and distance from each other. Unity and interdependence are crucial, since an upset in one of the categories upsets the whole order. God is believed to be the creator, the sustainer, and the ultimate controller of life. Africans thus have little difficulty reconciling his intervention into the affairs of humans, even though the spirits are believed to be his emissaries. Given this view of the world, each individual is viewed as an important, integral part of the whole. Optimally, this view demands that we treat each individual as a being of equal importance, for altering the individual consequently alters the whole. Therefore, each person in and of himself or herself is seen as a cherished and vital entity. The importance of relationship manifests itself in many ways. One of the most obvious is greeting behavior. In some cultures, greeting tends to be somewhat perfunctory. Often at meetings, introductions will be dispensed with because of time considerations. At the foundation of African culture, in contrast, is the emphasis on relationship between individuals. The custom in Lesotho of greeting everyone who enters a meeting may appear to be impractical based on American conventions. However, it is completely appropriate given the significance that Africans place on maintaining positive regard through established relationships. Greeting becomes a symbol which underscores the importance placed on the relationship. Such greeting is essential in African culture because it is a gesture that confirms there is a shared bond. During my lectures, I will often call upon strangers in the room, 2 black men from opposite corners, to approach and greet each other as a demonstration to my audiences of the pervasive cultural norm of extended greeting among African Americans. The 2 strangers would immediately shake hands, followed by a slight embrace or any number of gestures, inconclusive of finger snaps, fist taps, and so forth. If I find myself walking down the street and I happen to catch the eye of another African American man or woman walking toward me, I will always give a customary head nod to acknowledge that I see you. And I am met with the same recognition despite the fact that we do not know each other. Greeting is just one small manifestation of the importance of acknowledging relationship. Here's another. We were crossing the border of Lesotho in southern Africa when we came upon an unusual sign posted outside the custom office, which read, "Warning, possession of illegal weapons could condemn you to 25 years in jail and community and family rejection. Please hand it in for the sake of your community." I just want you to see it. Yeah, see that? It's probably looking backwards, but that's what it is. Rejected by family and community. When was the last time you saw a law enforcement agency in America use that as the deterrent? I have never encountered a warning sign that included the potential negative impact such an infraction could bring to an individual's family or community. In America, this would simply not be seen as a message that would deter anyone from committing a crime. Again, it serves to underscore the importance Africans place on interpersonal relationships. Our children are no different. They place a similar emphasis on relationships. In schools all across the country, teachers use material rewards. Our children are no different. They place a similar emphasis on relationships. In schools all across the country, teachers use material rewards to motivate their students. For many years, I have worked with the school districts from Portland, Oregon to Atlanta, Georgia, and it has been my experience that you can motivate white children with such rewards for a much longer time than black children. It is no surprise that the teachers that have the most success working with many students of color emphasize building strong relationships based upon mutual trust and respect. Consider the following scenario. A second grade teacher has created a chart with all the pupils' names written down the left-hand side. To the right of the names are 5 columns indicating the days of the week. The children are told that they will receive a sticker in the shape of a star next to their name if they complete all of their seat work for the day. Johnny is an African-American student in the class. Now, Johnny, if you do all of your sheet work, we're going to give you a star. Johnny completes his sheet work for Monday and replies with great excitement, "Ooh, I got a star." On Tuesday, Johnny gets the same results, and he again replies, "Ooh, I got another star." By the third day, Johnny may tell his teacher, I can make my own stars, and I'm not doing all of that seat work for a star. In addition, Johnny may not complete a seat work for a smiley face, a ribbon, or even a B or an A. Educators commonly fault Johnny as lacking the desire or capacity to learn. It is more likely that the maturity rewards offered by the teacher no longer serve as an incentive for him. There are alternative approaches for motivating a child like Johnny. One that I've often used to put my arm around him and say, Johnny, now I know that you're going to get all of your sheet work done because you know I'm counting on you. And I believe that you can do a really good job. Those words suggest that I care about Johnny, and he will work for that. He will work for the relationship. Black parents sometimes find that their children are not performing academically up to his or her potential and is receiving unacceptable grades. When asked by their parents why they are receiving only a C, the black child may often respond, it's because my teacher doesn't like me. While this response is not likely to be met with approval by the parent, its prevalence suggests that there is more to it than a rebellious student. As a parent and an educator, I have had to consider the pervasiveness of this anthem among African American children, teens, and often college students as well. Whether or not these students accurately perceive what teachers feel about them is less important than the fact that the teachers' feelings matter at all. What it does suggest is that it is important for Black students to feel well regarded by their teachers. Given the significance of relationships that I have learned from Edwin Nichols' work, I developed and implemented a relationship-based approach to education specifically designed for teachers who work in schools with significant populations of African American and Hispanic American students. At the heart of this culturally based model is the establishment of strong relationships as a fundamental and essential ingredient for the academic success of those students. Unfortunately, African American children are often treated with disdain upon entering an elementary, middle, or high school. On numerous occasions, I have observed that the individual assigned to the front desk is the most hostile and bitter member of the school staff. In fact, they do not appear to like children at all. Consequently, many students have been emotionally assaulted before they can even get to class. This is a major problem if you accept the notion that perhaps the most effective motivator for Black children is love. Clearly, other children are so highly motivated by love. The difference is that in the absence of affection, some children will work for stars and points and the like. But for Black children, in my experience, in love's absence, those material types of awards do not work very long as effective motivators. It's easy to underestimate the role relationships may play in Black culture. From fights between children in New York City schoolyards, gang-related violence in LA streets, tribal wars on the African continent. Dysfunctional relationships often stand as the most significant factor in precipitating conflict. Correspondingly, building and maintaining healthy relationships are the two of the most significant factors in facilitating peace and harmony. 1 second, just want to see what's going on over here. Are you liking what's going on? What are your comments? I'm not going to respond, but I would like to stir some conversation and see what's going on. I just got out of a meeting with the elders and what my brother's saying. Somebody outside my window, so I got to see what's happening. I don't know. Neighbor, some white folk, ain't none of my business. Okay, so this next session is going to be called It's About Time. I'm trying to see will I have enough time to read all of this. I'm going to do my damnedest, okay? And if you don't got time to read this or listen to this, listen, on that drive to work, on that drive from home, I try my damnedest not to use profanity, but it slips through. What can I say? It slips through. This not for kids. This not for, you know what I mean, anyone that's not interested in really being free or just using thought. You know what I mean? Not somebody that's just out here following an order and not even thinking. This is for thinkers. One moment, please. Peace. I tell you what, let me finish reading this last little chapter. It won't even take. You can stay on. No, you can stay right on the phone, bro, because I was just explaining on my YouTube channel. I'm live right now. You're on the phone, so you're being recorded. But if you give me maybe 1 minute, I'll read It's About Time, and I'll end it because it's already 24 minutes, and I try to keep it to 30. All right, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna just read this, and I'll get right with you. One moment. Okay, that's my brother Shango. So we're gonna read this section and it's over. It's about time. Those who have traveled through Europe know of Germany's reputation for extraordinary exactitude. If the bus schedule says the bus to Berlin leaves at 8:03 a.m., that is exactly when it will leave. Not 8:02 or 8:04, but 8:03 on the nose. Of course, in Africa, things are usually quite different. In a small village in Kenya, the bus to Nairobi may leave on Tuesday. In some places in Africa, planes will take off when there are enough passengers. Each culture has its own conception of time. We are not directly taught what time is or how it works. We learn through our interactions with our respective cultures or societies. A number of years ago, a friend of mine met a man who taught English in China from 1982 to 1984. During the decision, he'd asked them what the Chinese people thought of communism. After all, it had been around for more than 30 years and it must have had a huge impact on the population. His response surprised my friend at the time. He said most people he had met viewed communism like any other dynasty. They didn't pay much attention to it because it would be gone within a couple of hundred years. Apparently, some Chinese people have a broad view of time. Americans get upset when a person they didn't vote for gets to be president for 4 years, or worse, 8 years. Underlying African behavior is a view of time as being flexible and plentiful. From the African perspective, time serves the relationships among people, hence meetings like the one I attended in Lesotho. Many gatherings in Africa tend to have indefinite starting times as well as indefinite completion times. Meetings are likely to begin when everyone has arrived and finish when the purpose has been accomplished. The European time pressure people frequently feel in America is relatively non existent in Africa. That rushed feeling many Americans experience is an American phenomenon. In some parts of the world, people are more laid back, more time is taken for each other. In America, Black people who show up late for work are often characterized as unprofessional. To correct for the loss, an African American worker who shows up late will expect to work through their lunch hour or make up the time at the end of the day. The issue is that many employers do not or cannot make the distinction between an unprofessional employee and an industrious one. For many of us, strict adherence to time is not part of our upbringing. Throughout my childhood, our home had a very loose temporal structure. Yes, like many families, we ate dinner together every evening. However, we had no set time for dinner. Unlike many European American households, yes, we had to be home at a certain time, but it wasn't 6:30, it was when the street lights came on. Strict adherence to a clock simply did not play a particularly strong role in our lives. The result is that I just adjust to the bicultural nature of time with a level of flexibility that allows me to move smoothly between cultures. In the last paragraph, for some cultures, time is something to be parsed, counted, and measured. Time can be lost, saved, and gained. It is a resource. And some people have little of it while others have a lot. In other cultures, time is seen as an infinite resource, a force with which they have to live. In still other countries, like those in Africa, time is not something for us to control. It is something with which we attune ourselves. Life has a rhythm, and flowing with it is what is important. With that, I'm going to say peace. Again, on the 11th at 10 in the morning, we're at the Crucial Center right there in the Moselle and Fugeron. Come through, see what the Black Buffalo Convention is about. Also, the brother Shango, man, got lots of stuff. He got flyers, he got sweatshirts, he got jewelry. Come check him out, man. I'm telling you, spend your money with your own people, man. Make that dollar circulate like all other ethnicities do. With that being said, I hope your today is great and tomorrow is greater. Peace.